I think all of the cases should be dealt with before November. We need to know what's going to happen before before the presidency happens, because after that, should he become president, I don't think any of it's going to get heard. I think voters are going to want to know what they're walking into, and if they're walking into a president who's still going to have to be in court, or if they're walking into a presidency where he can get rid of a court case, voters are going to want to know that.
I think Nikki Haley makes very good points, but she's running up against a problem. The Supreme Court, which has agreed to hear Donald Trump's presidential immunity appeal this week, the justices, they scheduled oral arguments for late April, and a ruling could theoretically come anytime after that. Look at the calendar. Donald Trump's election interference trial in Washington, D.C. is on hold until the court rules. It's a conundrum. Let's bring in someone that knows a little more than a little something. Melissa Murray, she's an NYU law professor, MSNBC legal analyst, and co-author of the brand new book, The Trump Indictments, The Historic Charging Documents with Commentary.
I just want to say, friends, you missed out on your copies of the book because you're not here with us in New York. But it is, let me just say, it is heavy. You could do some bicep curls with this because, as you pointed out to me, 91 counts. Here's the thing I want you to clear up for me that I'm a little confused about, which is, it is my understanding that part of the argument that Jack Smith is going to make in this immunity case is, let's not go broad. Let's not be theoretical. Let's not entertain every possibility of ways in which this could apply. Let's keep it real narrow and talk about whether or not you believe that Donald Trump's charges are immune from criminal prosecution. One, am I getting that right as a non-lawyer? And two, how does that then affect the timeline?
So I think that is going to be the strategy going into the April 22nd argument. Again, sort of this is about one ticket to ride. It's about Donald Trump. It's not about the broad universe of presidential immunity. But again, that runs up against the way the Supreme Court has framed this case. The question presented already sort of takes as a given that maybe we do have to get into the questions of whether or not the acts alleged here were within the scope of Donald Trump's official duties as president, whether it applies to a former president. And so it really is up to the Supreme Court to decide what it will take. Jack Smith can make all the arguments he wants, but the court's going to decide this. And again,
but for you as a court watcher, what do you think? Do you think they narrow it?
I think the court does whatever it wants. I mean, this is a court that has been doing whatever it wants in a lot of different areas, whether it's with regard to precedent or how it interprets statutory law. This is a court that has arrogated a lot of power to itself. And in this particular case, it's arrogated to itself the power to determine if this person who has been charged with 91 different crimes is going to be on the ballot and is going to stand, and if he's going to be immune from these charges. So we already have tons of cases about Donald Trump pending around the country. We have one already pending at the Supreme Court. This is yet another one. And this court is in the pole position and in the driver's seat.
So, okay, so just so you know, Simone and I are both exasperated on this end of the table because it just, Simone, I'll defer to you and then I'll clean up on aisle 9.
Melissa, the question on, I used to work at the White House. I would have never thought it was within my scope of my duties as a deputy assistant to the president or senior advisor to the vice president to pick up the phone and call the secretary of state of a state that somebody lost, asking, can you just find me some more votes? Like, that is not within the scope. This is about crimes and criminality. Why is it so broad? Give the people some hope. Is there any hope left here for the Supreme Court when it comes to this?
So I don't have much in the way of optimism about this court. I'm going to be really honest with you. This is a court that's been it's high on its own supply for a while now. This is a 6-3 conservative supermajority. This is always going to be the case when you have that much consolidation of power. But what we show in our book, The Trump Indictments, is that this is a person who is alleged to have engaged in crimes before, during, and after his presidency. And now, rather than having all of this determined in a court of law where facts can actually be adjudicated under the guidance of an experienced judge, we are going to have to let this be decided by the general electorate at the ballot box. With all of the disinformation and misinformation that's floating around here, we have no common vernacular. We have no common set of facts. That's what a courtroom would provide. And the fact that the Supreme Court has set oral argument for April 22nd doesn't mean they're not going to issue a decision that says that Donald Trump is not immune. But it does mean that that late and protracted timeline makes it very unlikely that all of this is going to be resolved in a court of law before the election. And that really is the problem. It's taken the fact that we could have this adjudicated in a way that the rule of law would require, and instead it's going to be left to the people.
Michael, I'm ready for that cleanup in aisle 9.
Yeah, because Melissa, here's the rub for me, and I love the way you framed it. That this court can do whatever it wants, right? There is no requirement that this court do what it just did. In other words, we'll kick this can down to April 15th or 20th, and then we'll start the clock maybe after that. I go back to Bush v. Gore, where the Supreme Court didn't wait 8 months to decide who the next president of the United States would be. They expedited those hearings. They expedited that conversation, that national conversation, and they rendered a decision shortly after that process had began. Why? Because they knew the country needed a president. This court could have done the same thing. They could have had those lawyers brief them on Monday. Oh, they didn't have to brief them, Melissa. You know why? Because the lower court and the appellate court both were briefed by those attorneys. So all they had to do was pick up the briefs that they already had. What is dynamically going on here that I really don't want to say that this court is playing the game of politics knowing the Chief Justice, but you know what? There's a whole lot of politics here when you know where this thing could land potentially on the calendar, and the court refused to move the agenda up, get the lawyers in front of them next week, and render a decision by the middle of March.
Preach, Michael, preach.
Well, Michael, we already know that this court can move fast when it wants to. It moved fast in 2000. If you saw in 2020 with the COVID cases, they moved fast to get churches open when they thought that was important. So when they feel exercised to do so, they can. The question is, why aren't they doing it now? We can't really speculate about what the internal dynamics of the court are, but I will just leave out there that this isn't a court that's uninvested in the outcome of this election. At least 2 of the justices who are currently sitting on the court, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas, are in their 70s. If a Republican is elected president, they will more than certainly step down. And when they do, that Republican president will have the option to nominate their successors, who will likely be much, much younger, maybe even teenagers. And this conservative supermajority will literally live for another generation and a half. And if that's what they're thinking, then, this isn't a court of law. It's really a court of politics, and they're playing politics right now.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Melissa Murray. I think I'm going to put a little something extra in this coffee.